pine pollen it has similar effect for the immune system.
What does it taste like?
It's just powder.
Okay.
It's in a capsule and.
This pollen I'm taking is pretty sweet. It's not sweet drinks. It's just the pollen itself. And what I do is I put it into coconut water and let it sit for about an hour.
What's its effect, practical?
It's packed full of minerals and vitamins.
Okay. Your daily.
Considered a superfood.
Are we ready? Are we ready? Are you sure we're ready? Okay, we're ready. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Balabha Girivara Dhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanandana Jasodhanandana Brajajanandana Brajajanandana Yamuna Tiravana Chadi Yamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopijana Balabha Girivara Dhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanandana Dana Brajajanandana Jasodhanandana Brajajanandana Brajajanandana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Tiravanacha Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parividagacharya Astakarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Car?
It says no parking between 8 and 10 a.m. The rest of the day at home.
So you're okay on the right side of the street. It's just your tail end is a little bit past where the street marker. I wouldn't want to see you get a parking ticket. I think my advice is don't mess. Parking tickets can be expensive. What to speak if they put a boot on your... They don't give tickets around here?
They stopped working on that.
Okay. So let's go to Canto 10, Chapter 9, Damodara Lila, Chapter 9, Text 21. And we're midway through all the commentaries. The Lila itself, little background. The Lila itself is verse 1 through 19. And 20 and 21 are summarizing what Sukadeva Goswami would like us to receive from the Damodara Lila. And the two main things, the love of Mother Jasoda is out of sight. It's topmost amongst other perfected souls. Verse 20 specifically mentions Brahma, Shiva, and even the goddess of fortune have not received mercy like Mother Jasoda received, because they were never able to bind Krishna with a rope meant for tying cows. But Krishna was happy to be tied by Mother Jasoda. It was voluntary because of her love. And verse 21 is speaking about how to get that kind of love. That's like a very important verse, right? How to get that kind of love. So it speaks of spontaneous loving service. Those of us that have read Prabhupada's books know that spontaneous loving service is a term that he uses for Raga Nuga Bhakti. Spontaneous. So there's vidhis, there's regulations, and as regulative devotional service matures, it may become more spontaneous. Here's a little Prabhupada story. In the Henry Street, Brooklyn Temple, the head pujari was Rukmini Dasi. And she wrote a letter. I didn't see the letter that she wrote. I saw what Prabhupada wrote back. There isn't enough time in the day to do all the services I want to do for Radha Govinda. And Prabhupada wrote back saying, oh, how nice that you've achieved the stage of Baba Bhakti. Very generous. Because one of the symptoms of Baba Bhakti is one is very, very careful with time. One doesn't waste even a moment because it can be used in Krishna service. Time is very valuable. So spontaneous loving service is not equivalent to Bhava Bhakti, but spontaneous devotional service is following the path of perfected souls of Braja. So translation to text 21, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service, but he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. And we're going to go back a bit. So far we've read Prabhupada's verse translation, just read it again, his purport, and the commentaries by Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Now we're in sections where this verse, text 21, is being referenced in other writings. For example, we're going to start with Jiva Goswami's Priti Sandarbha. So you're familiar with the Sandarbhas, you've heard the term. There's 6 Sandarbhas. Essentially, it's a commentary on 6 parts, commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. It's many other things, but it's a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. And it follows the Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. Sambandha, relationship of all things with Krishna. There's 4 parts there. Then acting in that relationship, that's Bhakti Sandarbha. And the fruit of acting in that relationship. We know in ISKCON we normally call that prema. Prema Bhakti, Prema Pumarta Mohan. Prema is a mature stage. Jiva Goswami likes the word Priti. And they're kind of like interchangeable. They're not identical. Priti means, the feelings. Bhakti means, prema is the mature stage of bhakti, devotional service, with meaning, with a mature stage of prema rasa. So, Priti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami writes, pure love, or Shuddha Priti, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the best of all spiritual attainments. And he makes reference to Bhakti Sandarbha to support this. Too bad your husband isn't here, because this morning we were having a discussion about different terminologies. Here's Jivan Mukta Prapadyante Puna Sangsara Vasanam Yadi Achincha Maha Shaktau Bhagavati Aparadina. So, aparada, we know what that means. Offending who? Bhagavan. If you offend Bhagavan, even you're from Jivan Mukta, a liberated soul, you can fall down. So that's what the verse says. Even liberated souls will again take birth in the world of birth and death if they offend the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose powers are beyond all understanding. Oh, you missed it. We'll do it again for your sake. This is the Jivan Mukta phrase. Okay. Jivan Mukta Prapadyante. This is so. Even liberated souls, Jivan Mukta, even liberated souls, if they engage in aparad to Bhagavan, Puna Sangsara Vasanam. Samsara-vasanam. Vasanam is like a deep-seated impression. Vasana. Deep-seated impression. Not just like a superficial one, but a deep-seated one. Samsara-vasanam. More birth and death in the cycle of birth and death if there's Bhagavat aparad, even if you're a liberated soul. Then there's another reference, says something similar. even if his past karma is burned to ashes by spiritual knowledge, a person who does not worship the Supreme Personality Godhead when he arrives will take birth as a Brahma Rakshasa demon when he arrives. Like, you come into a temple room and you don't pay obeisances, or he comes before you and you don't pay obeisances. That's like what happened with the reciter of the Puranas, Romaharshan Sutta, when Balaram came into the assembly and he didn't pay obeisances. Whoa, he had a problem. He lost his life. So now commentary continues. We're in Priti Sandarbha. Jiva Goswami is explaining. Among many millions of liberated souls, one exalted devotee of the Lord is very rare. It is said in our verse this evening, text 21 from chapter 9, this translation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the son of Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, is never so completely known to the yogis and speculators. He is easily attainable to his devotees. It is also said, Canto 5, Chapter 6, Muktim dadati karhichit sma na bhakti yogam. These are some of the same references that we heard this morning, but it's from a different place. Bhakti Priti Sandarbha. Translation of that verse, Canto 5. Those engaged in getting the Lord's favor attain liberation from the Lord very easily. But he does not very easily give the opportunity to render direct service unto him. He gives liberation, but he doesn't readily give bhakti. So if we get bhakti, we're really fortunate. And again, from Canto 6, Chapter 14, Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha. Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha. Sudurlabha is very difficult to attain. Sudurlabha. And Narayana Parayana, absorption in the personality of Godhead. Very rare. So the translation, Canto 6. O great sage, among the many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees are peaceful, prashantatma, because they have full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it concludes, this is also confirmed by Krishna himself in the Uddhava Gita section, 11th canto, chapter 19. The Supreme Lord declares, Shamo man nishtata buddhe. That is, faith in me is peacefulness of the intelligence. That's a nice phrase to remember, isn't it? Shamo man nishtata buddhe. Faith in me is peacefulness in the intelligence. Faith in me is peacefulness in the intelligence. That's a good thing to remember in our very unpredictable time that we're passing through right now.
Faithfulness is peacefulness.
Faith in Krishna, Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, faith in Krishna, faith in me, man nishtata, faith in me, is peacefulness, shama, peacefulness, buddhehe, of the intelligence. Faith in me is peacefulness of the intelligence. So now another section from Priti Sandarbha. Jiva Goswami writes, seeing a display of Lord Krishna's extraordinary power, a devotee in the Vatsalya Rasa may think the power came not from Krishna, but from some other source instead. An example of this is seen in the following words spoken by Lord Krishna's parents. Chapter 7 of Canto 10. This is after Trinavarta, whirlwind demon, carried Krishna up in the air. It is most astonishing that although this innocent child was taken away by the Rakshasa to be eaten, he has returned without having been killed or even injured. Because this demon was envious, cruel, and sinful, he has been killed for his own sinful activities. This is the law of nature. An innocent devotee is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and a sinful person is always vanquished for his sinful life. Parental affection in Vrindavan, they can't see his divinity. That's the point. Lord Krishna's parents thought in this way. Lord Krishna's mother spoke these words in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 8, Canto 10. Mother Yashoda began to argue with herself after seeing inside Krishna's mouth the whole universe. Is this a dream? Or is it an illusory creation by the external energy? She's going through 4 options. Am I dreaming? And she goes, no, I'm awake. Is this an illusory creation of the external energy? No, I'm not. I'm able to see things with my senses otherwise. Has this been manifested by my own intelligence, or is it some mystic power of my child? She can't see that it's his unlimited potency manifesting. She's got to find some other. And she rules them out one by the other. After seeing Lord Krishna manifest the entire material universe within his abdomen, Mother Yashoda could not believe that this was a display of her son's great power. She assumed that he had no power to manifest this vision. She assumed that the vision of the universal form was caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was different from her son. She thought, in the same chapter, next verse, therefore let me surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offer my obeisances unto him, who is beyond the conception of human speculation, the mind, activities, words, and arguments, who is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, by whom the entire cosmos is maintained, and by whom we can conceive of its existence. Let me simply offer my obeisances, for he is beyond my contemplation, speculation, and meditation. He is beyond all my material activities. She's a devotee. She and Nanda Maharaj, they're Vaishnavas, worshippers of Narayan. And since she's so bewildered, she knows I can take shelter of Lord Narayan, who is all these things. She's educated in the Vedic wisdom, and she's taking shelter of him. Here, Mother Yashoda assumes that this vision of the universal form was caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is different from her son. To become free from seeing this fearful vision, she takes shelter of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Then she thought, next verse, it is by the influence of the Supreme Lord's Maya that I am wrongly thinking that Nanda Maharaj is my husband, that Krishna is my son, and that because I am the queen of Nanda Maharaj, all the residents of Vrindavan, all the wealth of cows and calves are my possessions, and all the cowherd men and their wives are my subjects. Actually, I am eternally subordinate to the Supreme Lord. He is my ultimate shelter. When you get bewildered, that's what you do. You take shelter of reality. Supreme Lord. With these words, Mother Yashoda firmly takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, speaking the words, Nanda is my husband, that Krishna is my son. She refers to Lord Krishna, who is then before her eyes. She then says, I'm bewildered. Ku matihi. Ku means bad. Matihi, mind. I'm bewildered. They're quite okay. They'll just sit in the balcony seats back there. Okay. I am bewildered by these many manifestations of the universal form. Then she says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the goal of my life. Shukadeva Goswami then explains in the next verse. That's what she said. Here's what he said. Mother Yashoda, by the grace of the Lord, could understand the real truth, but then again, the Supreme Master, by the influence of the internal potency, Yogamaya, inspired her to become absorbed in intense maternal affection. Intense maternal affection. She's maternal affection, when it gets intense, might look like, Radha's thinking, Mom and Dad speak really strongly sometimes. Their maternal affection is too intense. But, intense maternal affection can be differently manifest. For the Brijbasis, we've been speaking about this. One of the words that our acharyas use regularly in describing a characteristic of their love is possessiveness. Possessiveness in the material sense is a no-no. But in the spiritual sense is a yes, yes. It's not possessive in the material sense, like I've got something and put it in my pocket and it's mine, meant for my enjoyment. But the material sense, the spiritual sense of possessiveness is, I do not have anything else that I consider to be important to me or mine beyond my relationship with Krishna. So if you're a cowherd boy, there's possessiveness. He's my friend. And other things can just take a hike because it's just, there's absorption to an extreme degree. Or the gopis, or the elders, etc. So she got bewildered by what she saw. She went floating on the waves of prema with different emotions, spiritual emotions, and she came back focused on her primary emotion.
I mean, she was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
She's trying to figure out what.
Well, the inquisitive spirit is natural, but because she's Mother Jasoda, she can't part from the fixed relationship is called sthai bhava. The fixed relationship, sthai means steady. The steady ecstasy, he's my son. So this emotion, or this bhava moved her this way, like a piece of wood floating on the waves, and this wave goes up and subsides, and that wave goes up, and she's being tossed around by the waves of ecstasy. But it never takes her away from this one thing. This steady ecstasy, the sthai bhava of he's my son. So she came back in for a landing. He's my son. All of that ecstasy, this and that, was arranged by Krishna to stimulate her primary mood. It wasn't to bewilder her. She got bewildered. She was inquisitive. What's this? But she can't go away from I'm the mother. She can't. She's bound by that emotion. That's her glory. So, Yogamaya inspired her to become absorbed in intense maternal affection for her son. That's what Shukadeva Goswami says about what just happened. Here the word tattva means truth or reality. Tattva refers to her son. The word Sa Ishvara refers to Lord Krishna's feature as the supreme controller. In Srimad Bhagavatam, previous verse, the word pranatasmai tatpadam means, let me simply offer my obeisances, for he is beyond my contemplation. And in this verse, Vaishavim Mayam means the Supreme Lord's internal potency, or Supreme Lord's mercy. That's what Shukadeva Goswami is saying. By the Supreme Lord's mercy, she went through those considerations. What's the cause of this? And then she came in for a landing again by his mercy, Yogamaya's mercy, bringing her back to, whatever's going on. He's my son. I'm the mother. I need to protect him and take care of him. And then the next verse. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are studied through the three Vedas, the Upanishads, the literature of Sankhya Yoga, and other Vaishnava literature, yet Mother Yasoda considered the Supreme Lord her ordinary child. So there's elevated texts in the Vedas which are truth. They reveal the truth. But Mother Yasoda is even beyond the Vedas. He's my son. I have to care for him. And then this evening's verse, text 21 from chapter 9, the Damodara Lila chapter. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service, but he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. Then he skips forward to, this is still Priti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami writing. There's words in Srimad Bhagavatam that sing the glories of Mother Yashoda. These texts that we just heard. It's also spoken in chapter 46 of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the circumstances. Uddhava, Krishna has gone to Mathura. He killed Kuvalyapida. He killed Kamsa. He's liberated his mother and father, Vasudeva Devaki, from prison. And he's now living in Mathura. And also he went to school. Sandipani Muni. Now he's back in Mathura. And he's feeling the residents of Vrindavan, they can't bear my separation. And I can't bear their separation either. But I can't go back just yet. For two reasons. If I leave Mathura, Jarasandha and other demoniac kings will come and attack. Why would Jarasandha come to attack? The answer is, Jarasandha's two daughters were married to Kamsa. So he's their father-in-law. And when Kamsa was killed, the daughters ran back to Daddy. Daddy, our husband was killed. Do something about it. Take revenge. So Jarasandha would come and attack. If I leave, Mathura is unprotected. And if I go, another second reason, if I go to Vrindavan, they'll know, the other demons, they'll also know that I have affection for the residents of Vrindavan, and they'll be harassed. So I can't go just yet. But I know they're feeling separation, so I'll send Uddhava. He's a really reliable, he's like super good messenger. So he writes the letter to the gopis, and Uddhava's gone to Vrindavan from Mathura. That's where we are. And the first place he goes is to see Nanda and Yasoda, the king and the queen. And when he sees Nanda, here's what Nanda says to Uddhava. Does Krishna remember us? Does he remember his mother and his friends and well-wishers? Does he remember the cowherds and their village of Raja, of which he is the master? Does he remember the cows, Vrindavan forest, and Govardhan hill?
Uddhava looks a lot like Krishna.
Yes, yes. Will Govinda return even once to see his family? If he ever does, we may then glance upon his beautiful face with its beautiful eyes, nose, and smile. Hearing from Nanda, Uddhava has another picture of Krishna. He has a picture that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here's what Uddhava says. Oh, respectful Nanda, certainly you and Mother Yashoda are the most praiseworthy persons in the entire world. Why? You have developed such a loving attitude toward Lord Narayan, the spiritual master of all living entities. Now, what is Nanda here? Yes, we are devotees of Lord Narayan. But what Uddhava means is your son is Lord Narayan. But he doesn't hear that. Their deity is Lord Narayan. You become such a nice devotee of Lord Narayan. You're so fortunate. Even as Uddhava spoke these words of praise, Nanda remained convinced that Krishna was his son and not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could not move from that idea. Then, later in that chapter, while Krishna's messenger continued speaking with Nanda, the night ended, O king. That's Shukadev to King Parikshit. The women of the cowherd village rose from bed and, lighting lamps, worshipped their household deities. Next morning. Then they began churning yogurt into butter. What the Vaishya community does. In this way, Uddhava spoke many words to console Nanda Maharaj, who was grieving in separation from Krishna. No matter what Uddhava said, Nanda remained always convinced that Krishna was his son, not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The truth of Uddhava's words, that Krishna is indeed the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is elaborately explained in another Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, so we're not there yet. Even at Kurukshetra comes in chapter 82, much later, at least in the sequence of the Bhagavatam. It's a whole other thing when it actually took place. It actually took place shortly after Kamsa was killed, but it comes much later in the Bhagavatam, the chronology. Anyway, even at Kurukshetra, when a great host of saintly devotees affirmed that Lord Krishna is indeed the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nanda Yasoda remained unconvinced. They continued to believe that Krishna was only their son. This is seen in the following words of Srimad Bhagavatam from the 82nd chapter. We're in Kurukshetra. Raising their two sons onto their laps and holding them in their arms, Nanda and saintly mother Yashoda forgot their sorrow. This is when he's still 12 years old, shortly after killing Kamsa. It is also seen in these words of the Bhagavatam. This is now again chapter 47. May our thoughts always take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. May our words always chant his names. May our bodies always bow down to him and serve him. Even though the truth that Sri Krishna is the all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead was again and again proved to him, Nanda Maharaj continued to believe Krishna was only a son and nothing more. These words from the 47th chapter of Bhagavatam, Nanda spoke to Uddhava, which mean, we pray that birth after birth we may love Krishna. This prayer of love spoken by Nanda is filled with anurag love. Love is not absent from it. Then it is said, the very next verse, as Uddhava was about to leave, Nanda and the others approached him bearing various items of worship. With tears in their eyes, they addressed him as follows. That was this verse preceding, may we become lovers of Krishna birth after birth. In these verses, it is seen that Nanda and Yashoda are filled with anurag, ecstatic love for Lord Krishna. Their devotion to the Lord is not in the mood of awe and veneration, the mood of appreciating Lord Krishna's supreme power and opulence. Here, Uddhava thinks, oh, although I am far from attaining this kind of good fortune, I shall pray that someday I will attain this kind of ecstatic love. I pray this love will not be denied to me. With a voice choked with emotion, Uddhava prays in this way, praying that in some other lifetime he may someday attain this kind of anurag, ecstatic love. Uddhava says in chapter 47, he's still visiting Vrindavan from Mathura. Wherever we are made to wander about this world by the Supreme Lord's will, in accordance with the actions to our fruitive work, may our good works and charity always grant us love for Lord Krishna. That's a good verse to share with our friend from yesterday evening. 1047-67. 1047-67. Send that to her. And concluding is a shorter section. A little curious. Both Rupa Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti make the same statement that's not very clearly described in Bhagavatam, that when Krishna was born in the prison house of Kamsa to Vasudeva and Devaki, simultaneously he took birth as the son of Nanda and Yashoda. Simultaneously. So here we go. Question: did Yashoda not understand that she had given birth to a girl child also, and that Vasudeva had in front of her taken the girl in exchange his son and left? Answer: she did not know about the exchange. Lingam means indication or inference. The reason she did not understand is given. She was exhausted. She gave birth to 2 children, and she was just exhausted. She didn't even notice that what happened. Vasudeva came. She was out of it. She was conked out. And he did what he did. So the Krishna that he brought merged into the Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. That's what our acharyas say. Because the Swayam Bhagavan Krishna includes everything anyways. So that Vasudeva Krishna feature entered into the Swayam Bhagavan Krishna feature, one Krishna. In Adi Purana, it is clearly said by Narada, nice, Nandagopa Grihe, in the home of Nanda's home, Putro, a son, Yashoda Garba Sambhava, A son was born from the womb of Yashoda in the house of Nanda. A son was born from the womb of Yashoda in the house of Nanda. It is said elsewhere that Krishna was Yashoda's son, not foster son, son. And we should accept the direct meaning of such statements. And he makes a further reference. We're almost done for the evening. At the time of Krishna's birth, this goes back to chapter 5, canto 10. Krishna was born, there's a ceremony going to be performed. Nanda Maharaj was naturally very magnanimous, and when Lord Sri Krishna appeared as his son, he was overwhelmed by jubilation. He's saying we should take the direct meaning. It's not some other meaning.
The Krishna book where it says that Krishna's the foster.
Yeah, it does speak like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does speak like that. Prabhupada didn't drill into this distinction that Rupa Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti drill into. He said foster son, foster child.
So this is a deeper.
It's a more complete picture. He's a more complete picture. Now, who was Prabhupada addressing? He was addressing an audience that to understand God has form is a stretch. Then to say that he appeared in two different places and he merged into another, he didn't go there. That's my understanding. He left it at that Vasudeva Krishna was left by the side of Yasoda. Yogamaya was taken, daughter of Yashoda. He just left it at that. Now, he's certainly a follower of Rupa Goswami, and this is Rupa Goswami. So last, our verse for this evening, text 21. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service, but he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. And that's our discussion.
So this
for the evening.
explanation is in the 10th canto.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it explains that by Rupa Goswami and who was a Chakravarti.
Vishwanath Chakravarti.
Vishwanath Chakravarti.
Yes. Yeah. It's not in the headlines. It's in the fine print at the bottom.
Right.
For those who like the topics of Krishna, it's refined further detail about the topics of Krishna. The emphasis being given in what we've been reading on the Damodara Lila. Well, let's go back to chapter 8. Chapter 8 of Canto 10 is Krishna's childhood pastimes. It starts with he's not even able to crawl. He's little baby Krishna. And it ends up he's 3 years old. So that chapter 8 is that period of time. Little baby, he's 3 years old. So he's starting to crawl, and there's the description of that. He and Balaram, because they were of the same age, just some number of days apart from one another in age. And then the childhood activities. Once he starts to walk, he began to walking. Those that know something about child development, a child starts to walk at what age? 2?
One,
1 to 2.
1 to 2. Yeah.
Okay. So he was walking before that. He was a toddler. So when he started to toddle, then he would do things that toddler, he would go to the pasturing ground and pull the tails of calves, and the calves would be startled and they'd run, and he'd hold on to the tail of the calf and go for a ride.
And the gopis used to watch this
Yes.
and laugh.
And so all those things would happen. The point is, the focus goes to his childhood activities and the love that was exchanged with the elders, the cowherd men, the cowherd ladies. And then when he was able to walk more dexterously, he started his muckanchur pastimes, stealing butter pastimes. And then there's a long section about that. And Mother Jasoda wouldn't admonish him. She just embraced him.
Because he was quite naughty. They were quite naughty.
The Acharya is saying he was naughty because he wanted a particular kind of affection from his mother, along with all the other kinds of affection from his mother, the affection of being scolded or admonished. It's an affection from a parent to a child. But he wanted it, and she didn't. She just embraced him. Why do you do such things? So then he ate dirt, and he wanted admonishment. She started to, but something else happened. So the chapter comes to a conclusion, chapter 8. Having described all of these wonderful exchanges, Shukadeva Goswami says, wow, the love of Nanda and Jasoda is out of sight. It's just like, they're very special. And then Maharaj Pariksit says, yeah, they're really special. How did they get to that kind of love? What austerities did they undergo? You're familiar with that description? So then Shukadeva Goswami says something very surprising. At the end of chapter 8, he said, in their previous lives, they were the demigods, Drona and Dara. They underwent austerities in the heavenly realm. They requested Brahma benediction. We would like to have the Supreme Lord as our son. He smiled, said, very good. Take birth on earth, and you will have Krishna as your son. But Nanda and Jasoda are eternally Nanda and Jasoda. They're now become Nanda and Jasoda. So the explanation is the expansions of them entered into the body of Nanda and Jasoda. They participated with Nanda and Jasoda, and after the pastimes were over, they went back to the heavenly realm, Drona and Dara. It's not in big bold letters, but it's in Canto 10, Chapter 8. Then Chapter 9 begins. The Damodara Lila begins. Shukadeva Goswami wants to sing the glories of Nanda and Jasoda. And specifically the focus goes to Mother Yasoda in the binding of Krishna pastime. Our acharyas say, we can understand the affection of Nanda is equal to that of Jasoda. The spotlight's on her, but they're equal. And in some places that she has even greater affection for Krishna because he's with him all day long, where Nanda's off in the pasturing ground with the cows. She's with Krishna during his childhood pastimes. Mothers have that special privilege of being with the children a lot. As long as the children don't develop familiarity, it's fine. That's an inside joke. We had a little discussion about familiarity with Mom. So the Damodara Lila is meant by Shukadev to do what he achieves. He's indicating the unique love that Yashoda has. And then expanding the unique love that Nanda and Yashoda have. And then expanding the unique love that the residents of Vrindavan have. That no one else that's a devotee anywhere, any place, is equal to that, because it's very special nature. And this spontaneous nature, the madhurya nature, the sweetness, intimacy nature of that love, where they can't see Krishna as God. Well, so how we follow is we do Vaidhi Bhakti, like, with worshiping deities and on veneration. We're not supposed to, like, um, get spontaneous with deities. However, the stage of bhakti may come where the externals are observed, the vidhis of Vaidhi Bhakti are observed, and inside something else is happening. That may happen if we follow the spontaneous path. And then everything else that we do in our life can be like that, with the externally regulative, internally spontaneous. That's what Rupa Goswami's Nectar Devotion teaches us, or Bhakti Rasamrita teaches us. That's where that's where the Srimad Bhagavatam is taking us. That's where the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are taking us. So let's see if there's some discussion. And I see Radha's hand. She's always got her hand up first. This is your last chance, Radha. At least this time around.
Yeah, probably I'll ask a bunch of questions.
Okay, online. We'll count on it. I'll hold you to your word now.
Can we perform penance and then becomes Krishna's mother?
You can become Mother Yasoda's assistant, but not Krishna's mother.
So that means we have to be a Nityasudha to be Krishna's mother. Yeah.
But you can be the assistant.
We can be a gopi.
She's always looking for angles of how to shortcut things. Go ahead, next.
Is Uddhava a partial expansion of Krishna?
Is who?
Uddhava.
Uddhava.
Yeah.
Partial expansion. I don't think so. We don't hear. I'm not familiar with any description like that. He's like Arjuna, is an eternal associate of Krishna, but he's not a partial expansion of Krishna. He's a dear friend, and wherever Krishna is, performing his worldly pastimes or manifest pastimes in universes, Arjuna is with him. And Uddhava similarly, but not a partial expansion.
Is Uddhava, how is Uddhava related to Krishna?
He's a cousin. He's a cousin. Vasudeva had a brother, and I forget his name. Starts with a D, and that Vasudeva's brother had a son, Uddhava. They're cousins. Yeah.
How did Uddhava and Krishna meet, or how
They're cousins. I mean, come on. They're part of the same family.
If one has a relationship with Krishna in the mood of
Microphone. Give him the microphone. We're doing this sanitizing program. Common services are being passed around. Part of our protocol for safety. So now,
So if one develops this mood of the parental relationship with Krishna,
okay.
then, but you don't actually become the parent of Krishna?
You want to know how does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a couple of examples, two examples. It's described in chapter 8 that when Krishna was doing his childhood activities, the ladies would go, they would be disturbed because he was always doing mischief. And when he was doing mischief, they had to not do their household duties because they had to attend to Krishna doing mischief. But at the same time, they felt that their household duties, although Krishna wasn't their son, that they were doing their duties for Krishna. They had more affection for Krishna than their own sons, because their sons were Krishna's age and his friends. So specifically, their duties in household life, so they're not, Krishna's not their son, but they're doing their household duties for Krishna. That's their consciousness. They're so absorbed in Krishna, although biologically or physically or whatever.
It was parental mood.
Yes, there was the mood. And then the men, their husbands, cowherd men, they would see Krishna doing his funny things, pulling the tail or, walking, toddling through the village of Vrindavan. And they would stand there and they were just admiring with parental affection this beloved boy. Or another example is when Krishna was 3 years, 4 months, there was a village elder meeting, town hall meeting, and Upananda, not his father, was having a discussion about, I suggest that we move from Gokula to Vrindavan because there are two main reasons. Too many disturbances here. The children are at risk. But specifically, Krishna and Balaram, they're protective and with parental affection. And the other reason was the cows. All the grasses, fresh grasses, have been eaten up by the cows. So let's go to a place where there's new grass. There's abundant grasses and so on. So for the cows and for Krishna. So they're not the biological parents, but they have that kind of affection. There's other examples.
They have the parental mood.
They're carrying that mood always. He's so dear to them. He's so dear to them. More than their own. Here's another one. When Krishna had performed that pastime for 1 year, he was the sons of the... Yes, Brahma Mohan Lila. So they had that they wanted, so Krishna fulfilled what they wanted.
Right.
They wanted Krishna as their son. So Krishna became their son.
He fulfilled that desire.
Yeah. It wasn't their biological son, but he became their son.
Right.
While the other boys are in a cave for a whole year.
Yeah. Right.
So those are some examples of how it works. Parental affection. So anyone else? Radha's got her hand up again. Anyone? Let's go back here. Radha.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yashoda Mata had 2 kids, twins, right?
She had what?
Twins. 2
Twins.
babies.
Yeah, twins.
As a mother, she knows she had 2 babies.
Don't ask me how she didn't know.
Okay. Okay, fine.
I've pondered on that one. She's got it. I mean, gosh. The simple answer is Yogamaya covered her so she didn't even know.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
or she forgot or something. There's a very similar kind of explanation when Krishna showed the spiritual world to the residents of Vrindavan, and he opened the Yogamaya curtain. They saw, then he closed the curtain. They forgot. They wanted to see the spiritual world. They saw the spiritual world, and then they forgot. Yogamaya can do anything like that.
She,
Yeah, that's pretty special too.
Yeah.
How are we doing? Any of our? Ah, good.
It's not out.
Button. Ah,
I was listening to a lecture where when Krishna arrived beside Mother Yashoda, he still had the umbilical cord. So when they did the ceremony of cutting the umbilical cord and giving names,
I don't know where you heard that because I've never heard that.
yeah, because Vasudeva was carrying Krishna through the river, across the river give it to Mother Yashoda's place.
I follow what you say you heard. I'm responding by saying I never heard such a narration of an umbilical cord. So you better be careful where you hear kata from. Okay. And that means, there should be some scriptural reference, not just something. Over here, how we doing? Any contribution to this discussion? Comments, questions? You're passing, huh?
Wonderful.
Okay. Okay, let's do some online, then we'll go back to Radha because she's gathering her questions.
Question from Amara Mataji. Asking in the context of the question, what austerities were performed by Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda to be on the highest level of love?
There was no austerities done by Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda to be on the highest level of love. They're
Maybe
eternally Nanda and Yasoda.
Maybe she's asking about Drona and Dhara.
Oh, what Drona and Dara did doesn't specify. There we go.
So the Drona and Daru, they're not the same as Nanda and Yashoda. They're just temporarily.
No. Let's do this. Let's go to Krishnaloka. In Krishnaloka, there's the eternal Vrindavan within the planet Goloka. And Nanda and Yasoda are eternally there as the mother and father of Krishna. There's no birth pastime. But they feel that Krishna is their son, although there's no birth pastime. That's their bhav, their emotion, their love for Krishna. A partial expansion of them enter into the heavenly realm and take birth, known as Drona and Dara. They're specific, they're Vasus. He's a Vasu and that's his wife, Dara. They undergo austerities of some kind with the desire to have the Supreme Lord as their son. Brahma comes, says, what benediction would you like? We'd like to have the Supreme Lord as our son. He consents. Just, by his saying so, it then becomes an event that happens. A partial expansion of them merge into the body of the eternal Nanda and Yasoda. So they're in the Goloka, but they're in this Boma Vrindavan, which is eternally a place of Krishna's abode and Krishna's pastimes. Time for Krishna's appearance, they appear, and Drona and Dara enter into their body, their spiritual body. And therefore, in that way, they take part in Krishna's being born as their son. Pastimes are over, Krishna returns to the spiritual world, they return to the heavenly abode. Does that clarify?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. It's a little complex, but Krishna permitted them to have that function, that service of feeling as if Krishna is their son. You have something? No.
Okay, so I heard in story the Putna had desire to be mother to Lord Krishna, and that's why she was born as Putna.
Yeah, you know the whole story?
I remember somewhat. But
You'd like to hear that story?
sure.
Okay. By the way, for your information, Thanksgiving is coming up. And traditionally, before the pandemic, I was conducting a Thanksgiving 16-part seminar. So it's pandemic time. I'm not going to be doing it the same way, but the topic is going to be the Putana story. And one section of the 16 classes is going to be Putana's previous life.
This will be online.
Yeah. The whole thing. So in her previous life, there are different scriptures that say she was Bali Maharaj's sister. Some say Bali Maharaj's wife. But there's two of them, I believe, that says sister. So Bali Maharaj was doing a sacrifice. Bali Maharaj, right? So doing a sacrifice. And from a distance, Vamana came. This dwarf Brahmin, effulgent like a second sun rising in the morning, because it was early in the morning. And when he got close enough they could see him, his sister, Bali Maharaj's sister, felt maternal affection. One day I would like to have him as my son, or a son like him, one or the other. So maternal affection. Having that desire, Vamana granted her the fulfillment of that desire. Sometimes you have that function. However, when Bali surrendered everything and he was tied up with ropes, she became very angry. And she said, I want to kill him. So that was fulfilled also, the attempt, at least, to want to kill him. So she took birth. I forget her name starts with an R. Forget the name. Took birth as Putana. So she had that function, dual function. Maternal affection. It said when she saw Krishna in the crib, he was so beautiful. She again had those same motherly affection, feelings. But she also had the other, I want to kill him. So Krishna accepted the affection, this mood, however slight, and gave her what he gave her.
So not everybody can become a parent, but he pulls his desire in some other way.
Yeah. Krishna is very kind. That's the message. He's very kind. Then what to speak of someone who's trying to devote themselves in a favorable way instead of like the Putana way.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mark. Thank you.
We have just one more. Anything back there? Okay. So
I
here
just wanted to ask.
you
Like,
have another.
oh, just like when will the seminar? Like, what time will it be?
He'll inform you. I don't know. I don't know the schedule. Prematurangity will know the schedule. She probably has it all written down, but I don't know the schedule yet. But it starts the Wednesday evening before Thanksgiving Thursday, and there'll be 3 classes a day. Following that, Thanksgiving Day, 3, 3, 3, 3.
It's a good way to spend the holiday.
Yeah, that's the idea. Putana. Okay, here comes Radha's questions. Button.
Alright, this is related to Rangamataji's question about the twins. So I heard that there is some story related to it.
Related to which?
The 2 Krishnas and the Yogamaya. What is that story? There's a story related to it.
It's too open-ended. You got to be a little more specific.
I think it's that, like, I think it involved Radharani and Mother Yashoda with Krishna.
I'm sorry. I don't know what you're referring to. You check it out and send a little message like what you're.
Mother Yashoda and Radharani fighting, or and not fighting, but like
They're not born yet.
Krishna.
They're not born yet. Radha is born after Krishna is born.
Yeah, this is when they were older, I think.
Oh, when they're older. So
Yeah.
what's what the
I think she's referring to the pastime that you narrated from Radharani
which one?
a while ago. I think of Radharani's appearance there.
The binding of Radha? The binding of the Damodara Lila where Radha binds Damodar?
No, it was I think related to
Radhashtami?
Radhashtami. In your Radhashtami lecture, you read a very
What I don't know what you're referring to though. Do you? Do you recall what she's referring to? We'll do a little research rather than spinning around like this.
Okay.
Next.
How is Drona and Dara related to each other?
Husband and wife.
No, I thought they were like 2 different people.
Okay, great. Something further? You have something?
question on that.
Okay.
Just like your
So when I was asking Amara Mataji's question, somehow only half of the question showed up. That's why the context was not there. So that was in the context of Drona and Dhara. She was asking, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, could you kindly elaborate on how austerities lead to love of Godhead and what is the application for sadhana bhakti?
Austerities do not lead to love of Godhead. However, if one wishes to develop love of Godhead, it may be helpful, just like Radha can tell you all about the value of observing fasting. Anakadasi, her favorite. Because she wants love of Godhead. So she's very eager to do fasting on Ekadasi. We hit her funny bone. So if the answer to Amara response is one may, just like, it's Krishna Janmashtami, we observe an all-day fast, or the Shringa Chaturdasi, we observe an all-day fast, etc. On appearance days of Vishnu, we observe a half-day fast. So those are some simple austerities, or we follow the regular principles. Those are simple austerities. And it's to assist in controlling the mind and senses. That's why we do. So that's modest austerity, but it's not by austerity one can develop love of Godhead. It's just part of the necessity of controlling the mind and senses so that the higher purpose of life takes precedence. We by through hearing and chanting increased on those auspicious days. It's not the austerities per se. It doesn't mean we don't engage in austerities. We engage. So chanting 16 rounds for the beginning stages of bhakti, that's is a commitment. It's a vrata that we follow because it's good for us. We don't necessarily have a taste and feeling ecstasy and things like that. In the mature stage, the ecstatic love for Krishna is something we can directly experience. And we're looking forward to that day of feeling that ecstasy or experiencing love for the holy name, love for Krishna in the form of the holy name. So at the beginning, there's some sense of austerity.
Okay. This is the last question from Snehvali Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. This question is related to coming to Raganuga Bhakti. You mentioned that by reading, hearing, and meditating on these pastimes, our attraction for spontaneous devotional service will increase.
Yes.
My question is this activity sufficient to take us back to Krishnaloka?
It becomes more directed and concentrated as we go further on the path back home, back to Godhead. It becomes more directed and more focused as we go along the path back to Godhead. But that's the preliminary is doing just what we're doing. You are followers of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya wanted to give Braja Prem, and Braja Prem means, we're hearing again and again in this section that we're reading, it's following the associates of Braja, those that have that Braja Prem. That's Raganuga Bhakti. And as we go further and further, as our hearts become purified in that stage of loving attraction gets stronger and stronger, and detachment gets stronger, and the temporary gets stronger and stronger, then there are further details which are found in Nectar Devotion of how one can execute Raganuga Bhakti, which is appropriate for us when we get to that stage. For now, we're doing what we're doing. Okay? I think we should end. Thank you very much, Prabhupada Ki Jai.